Hey everyone. Today I have my friend Christian with me to talk about the sights that we have on this Glock 43, sights that have been on this Glock 43 for a very long time. And these are the XS Big Dot sights from XS Sights. Fancy how that works. Now, this isn't the only gun that I have XS sights on. I actually have XS sights on 3 guns. My shield, my Smith & Wesson M&P shield, and my Mossberg 590A1. And there's a reason that those specific guns have XS sights. Those are all guns that I expect to use in very close proximity to somebody. And if I'm in very close proximity to somebody, I need as fast of sights to pick up as possible. Now, that's not to say that with like my Glock 19, I'm not going to be close to somebody, but I also want to be able to reach out a little bit further than I might anticipate reaching out with something like a subcompact single stack 9mm like this or my shield, or a home defense shotgun. So, if you don't have any experience with XS sights, there is a little bit of a learning curve because it's a different sight picture than most sights out there. But as I understand it, the origin was from big game hunters down in Africa where they, had a charging Cape buffalo coming at them and they needed to get on target as quickly as possible to put that animal down. And I think it's the perfect sight system for something like that. Hence why it's so popular over there. So basically what you have is you have a big old white dot with a tritium vial on the very middle of it, so you have some low light, no light capabilities. And then in the back, you kind of have like a very shallow V notch with a vertical stripe, which, depending on the style you get, may also have a tritium vial in it. So basically, it's like putting a lollipop on a stick, is basically how it works. And depending on what range you're at from your target, changes how you establish your sight picture, which is where a lot of the learning curve comes in. And today, I think, was your first time shooting this 43 with these sights. So can you talk a little bit about kind of adjusting to that different sight picture?
Well, it was a bit of an adjustment because all sights, you're generally lining up the top of the front sight with the top of the rear sight. So that's what you expect to do.
Yep.
But this sits so far up above the top of the rear sight, you feel like you're pointing the thing up in the air. And it's a big dot. When they call it a big dot, that's good reason because it's a big dot. So it took me a bit to realize that I was going to shoot really low, which I did. I shot about 3 inches low my first couple rounds. But then when you put it up there and make it look like a lollipop, just like you say, then you're hitting pretty good.
You were hitting center.
But it goes against everything that you learn to line up sights first.
Yes. In a normal context, yes. However, where you really notice where these things come in handy is during a force-on-force class. And I can speak from direct experience with that, where we were using sim guns, and the sim guns we were using are sim Glocks, and most of them have the factory Glock sights, which are used the exact way that he just described. Line up across the top, equal light on both sides of the front post. And I can tell you it was really, really hard. And you can say whatever you want about what you would do in that situation. But when you're in that situation, your adrenaline is pumping through your veins, and you are under an immense amount of stress, and you haven't gotten that stress inoculation yet, and it's your first couple times through, it is really hard to pick up those sights if you even attempt to pick up those sights. Most people who go through those classes don't even attempt to pick up their sights. They just point their gun and pull the trigger and then wonder why they can't hit the guy who's shooting at them. With this, that big old golf ball on that front post is really easy for your eyes to pick up, and in close distance ranges, all you have to do, you don't even have to worry necessarily about the rear sight. You just put that front sight on the target, and you're probably going to be close enough to be able to hit the bad guy. Now, that's not saying you can't also be accurate with it, because once you figured out your hold, you were doing pretty good. And any of you who are familiar with Dave Biggers, the Dave Biggers experience, I took a red zone class with him, which was a really, really good kind of force-on-force oriented class. And one of his things was shooting 100 yards with XS big dots and being able to hit steel with it. So it can be done once you've really gotten the repetitions through it. And I say there's a learning curve. I would say through not even a box of 50 rounds, you're going to figure those sights out pretty good. I mean, you were halfway through your first magazine and you had it figured out.
Well, going back to what you were saying as far as, the force-on-force kind of stuff, there's a lot of talk about whether you should use your sights or not use your sights. And it's never going to be settled because everybody it's stupid. It's like Republicans and Democrats, right? The thing about it is, in my estimation, you learn to use your sights first as well as you possibly can because that develops muscle memory. And that muscle memory in times of stress will take over beyond the really trying to dial those sights in. The, where that comes into play with this thing here is my muscle memory tells me where to point the gun, and I'm pretty good at it. I just did a night shoot, no light shoot. We did pretty well with just muscle memory shooting. When I looked at the sights, though, I second guessed my muscle memory. Because when I first aimed out, it was where it needed to be, and I second guessed it and shot low.
Interesting.
So you got to give yourself enough practice to realize that you're doing two things. You're picking up that front sight, but you're also relying on your muscle memory in quick, tight engagement situations. I'm not talking about shooting for accuracy because you got a little bit more time. But in quick, tight, engagements, you got to train yourself to believe in it's weird, but believe in yourself that your muscle memory is going to carry you through, and you use that big dot to get at least on target. So that's the way that I look at it as far as this sight goes. It only took 5 or 6 rounds.
Yeah, not even.
To it's like, okay, I'm shooting low, and then realize you put the big old dot on the big old dot.
Put the center of the dot on where you want it to go at the ranges we were shooting, about 7 to 10 yards, and it's.
But as a defensive pistol, up close, which with a little gun like this, you're not shooting somebody 35 yards down the road. The front sight is right there. The minute you put it up there, it's right there. You put that anywhere on the center mass of your target, you're going to hit that guy.
Yep.
And you're going to hit him good and clean. And you're going to hit him repeatedly.
Yep.
So it's a really good a really good defensive sight to have on a small gun.
Exactly. And that's, again, goes back to exactly why I have those on my single stack subcompact 9mm. Because in my opinion, they are the fastest into the fight sights I can have. And if all I can pick up is that front sight, that's all I'm going to need in those distances, and that is the best front sight to do it. Now, again, something like my Glock 19, I still want a very good high contrast front sight, so that's why I have like the Ameriglow iDot Pros. And in fact, the XS sights, I think they call them the F8 sights or something like that. XS basically has their own version of it now, where it's the more traditional sight setup, but you still have that really high contrast tritium front sight to be able to pick up your sights for a little better precision at longer ranges with a little bit less of a learning curve. But for up close, this is kind of my preference. And one of the great things is Spartan Training Concepts, again, where I do my Force on Force training, they actually have sim guns with the XS sights on them as well. And seeing how students do with one versus the other is extremely interesting because they immediately notice, wow, this is way better for being able to actually pick up my front sight under stress. And they usually try to not pocket, but make sure every iteration they get that gun instead of the bad guy, which I'm usually the bad guy, so I usually try to grab that one instead and just shoot him a bunch. So it's kind of how it works out.
Shooting people.
But again, so in my opinion, for a gun that you are anticipating using in very close engagement distances, I think that's about as good as it gets. And in fact, let me just bring in something for reference here. I just picked up one of these Marlin 336s for testing. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to have a lot more on that later. But if I do decide to keep it, I'm probably going to put XS sights in this thing just because I just really like that theory of operation there for a rifle like this as well. So, I mean, all in all, again, it's one of those things where it might take some getting used to, and especially if you are a little bit more of a proficient shooter, a little bit more experienced, that learning curve can take anywhere from a box of 50 to 4 rounds for you, or 3 rounds. And then again, you do have to know a little bit difference of hold for point of aim at a little bit longer ranges. So again, that's something to take into consideration. But once you have them figured out, I think it's really hard to beat for, again, those close in engagements.
They're great defensive sights.
Exactly.
I mean, it's really the only thing you can say about them. They're great defensive sights. They're just exactly what you need for a defensive pistol. Up close, they're quick. You pick them up quick. You're not going to miss them. Under duress, you're either going to see your target, or you're going to see these things, and hopefully you see them both.
Yep. And I want to point out, I paid full retail price for this and every pair of XS sights I own. And with this one specifically, I didn't want to run into any issues installing the sights myself. Not that they're difficult, and they come with the tools to install them. So I took it to my local range, and when they were installing the front sight, they over-torqued it and snapped off the threads of the bolt in the front sight. So I called up XS Sights. I was talking to a real person almost immediately. Didn't have to go through this crazy long phone tree, and it was probably one of the best customer service experiences I'd ever had. Which, up to that point, I had just been dealing with a company that had probably the worst customer service I'd ever had. So maybe the contrast was more prevalent to me. But excellent customer service if you do run into any issues, which to me goes a really, really long way. So anything else you want to add about these?
No.
Okay. Again, I'm a really big fan of them. I've been using them for a long time.
Well, I am now.
Well, yeah, okay.
I am now. I'm a big fan of them now. I don't have a lot of experience with small guns. I don't really buy small guns a lot.
True.
And I can't shoot small guns very well now anyway.
That's true.
You know,
That thing.
But if I were to get a gun like this, which I may, because I'm getting old and I can't carry heavy things anymore, these are the sights I get on it. You know, it's just a really good sight.
Well, and I'll for what it's worth, just adding this to the conversation as well. I finally got my brother to finally buy a Glock 19, and he asked me what sights to put on him. He bought a pair of XS Big Dots. So, for what that's worth.
There are very few products that I will directly endorse, but I would endorse these.
So there you go. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, definitely let me know. I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. Reach me on Facebook, usually a little bit easier. But
I got to reach him through Facebook too, because he never wants to talk to me.
It's true. It's true. I do my best, but he always tracks me down. The other good way to get in touch with me is through Patreon. I am very diligent about responding to those people. I post all my content there early. I post some exclusive content, as well as doing giveaways and live streams and stuff. So if any of that sounds interesting, definitely check out the links below to check out my Patreon page. In lieu of that, as they say on InRange TV, I understand if you can't afford it, but at least share this video around with some other people, because that actually does make a significantly noticeable difference in the performance of these videos. But anyway, with all that said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching. The problem with XS Big Dots is there's a big learning curve.
Really, really is.
Because you really have to know what your point of aim has to be, because it's such a different sight setup.
I think I figured it out.
Huh. Yeah, looks like you got some in there. Let's say you figured it out.
Yeah, okay, I figured it out. You got to put the whole circle just right above everything.
Yeah, so it depends on what distance you're at, but at this distance, you literally just put the center of the circle over what you want to hit, which is...
And that sits right on top of this almost. It's almost at the top of the point. So.